Libya's disastrous floods this Tuesday night.
Very close to 10,000 persons reported missing.
The harrowing stories of people swept out to sea and what's interfering with recovery efforts. Health violations at a Calgary kitchen under scrutiny.
Food safety should not be an educational experience for the people working there at the expense of my child.
Climbing cases in the E. coli outbreak. New testimony against the man accused of murdering a Muslim family in Ontario. What a 911 call.
Over here, would you?
And this security video reveal. Plus, victory and vindication.
Facts win, truth wins, justice wins.
A Nobel Prize-winning journalist's legal triumph.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. From an earthquake to catastrophic flooding, there are disasters unfolding in two North African countries tonight. In Libya, torrents of water from heavy rain broke through two aging dams. About a quarter of the coastal city of Derna has been washed away. And in Morocco's high Atlas Mountains, where an earthquake collapsed homes and entire villages, the window to find survivors is closing. In Libya, it's believed more than 5,000 people have been killed and thousands more are missing, swept away by floodwater that exploded into neighborhoods with little warning. This is Derna, downstream from the two collapsed dams. Water is everywhere. There are harrowing stories of survivors clinging to buildings. More than 1,000 bodies have been recovered, and the number of dead is expected to soar. Libya has been mired in violence for more than a decade. Infrastructure is in bad shape, and part of the country where all this happened is ruled by a rebel coalition that's not recognized by the international community. All of that makes helping people difficult. Redmond Shannon has our top story tonight.
Storm Daniel dropped months of rain on northeastern Libya in just 24 hours, flooding entire towns, the impact of which is still unknown. But its aftermath is brutally clear in Derna. The rainfall breached two dams upriver from the city, triggering a wall of water likened to a tsunami rushing toward the sea instead of from the sea. It's possible that the upper dam collapsed first, with a torrent of water then taking out the second dam and then wiping out swathes of the city, destroying bridges along the way. The affected eastern region is controlled by one of two competing governments in Libya. The Prime Minister of the internationally recognised administration in western Libya said retrieving bodies swept into the sea will be the most difficult task. In Derna, bodies that didn't reach the sea lined the streets before lining mass graves. The final toll could be staggering.
All over the 5 cities, it reaches up to or very close to 10,000 persons reported missing.
The government in the east says it's using all its means to respond, but Libya's parallel administrations only complicate aid efforts.
The Prime Minister Abdelhamid Beiba here in the west cannot visit the east side because of politics.
Political analyst Fawzi Al-Madani says he's not surprised the dams collapsed, given Libya's years of conflict.
All the past governments have done nothing right. All they've done is supply the military interests of the different groups.
East and West Libya, for now at least, united in grief. Politics colliding this time with a natural disaster. Yet another painful chapter in Libya's turbulent modern history. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
In Morocco, the death toll has reached almost 3,000 after Friday's earthquake. Search crews are still struggling to get to remote villages. In some places, the wounded are being airlifted out, but hopes of finding survivors are fading. Our Crystal Goomansingh is on the ground in Morocco's disaster zone tonight.
The unique skill set of expert search and rescue teams is the difference between life and death for people here in Morocco. 4 days have passed since the most powerful earthquake to hit the country in 100 years pulverized homes and wiped out villages in the high Atlas Mountains.
When I arrived, this is how I found my house, my neighbor house as well. That was the house when I was growing up.
It took foreign teams a while to get approvals to enter the country. Getting around to some of the remote locations is treacherous. Our crew was held up several times on the road. There was a small landslide, the roads are packed, and on one occasion, traffic was halted as a man on a stretcher was rolled across the road to an ambulance. Some aerial support is in use, but more is needed. The lead of the United Kingdom's Special Rescue Team discussed with Moroccan military officials about moving some of his crew into place with helicopters so they could get to work quicker.
The longer we move away from the epicenter, the window slowly closes, but all the time that there is a chance of finding someone alive, we'll continue to operate in the rescue phase.
Time is a factor, and here there are many obstacles.
Morocco has a kind of buildings is very difficult to rescue people, and due to materials, it's very difficult to find the statistic to find people or live people is very difficult.
For hours, the rescuers, their dogs, and specialized equipment sat idle. It's unclear if local officials didn't know where to send them or if it was a matter of accessibility. A new challenge here in the High Atlas Mountains: traffic. It is absolutely snarled right now and nothing is moving. We sat in the traffic queue for more than an hour and walked up here to discover it stretches right around the road. After waiting for several hours at a base camp, the Spanish search and rescue team is just across the road. They haven't made it out today. All this while in villages and towns, stories of decaying smells intensifying. Some are maintaining a level of optimism. Others know they've lost loved ones because the community did the work of sifting through the rubble on their own. One thing is clear: the number of dead is likely to keep rising. It's nightfall and we finally made it out of the mountains. We are now in the city known as the gateway to the High Atlas Mountains. The entire trip down was bumper to bumper, the occasional raised voice, and sometimes emergency sirens. Donna?
All right, Crystal Goomansingh in Morocco tonight. Thanks. Alberta Health Services has revealed troubling details about a kitchen shared by a number of daycares in Calgary. An inspection found 3 critical violations related to food handling and pest control. And the number of cases of E. coli related to Calgary daycares keeps rising. There are now 264 lab-confirmed cases. 25 children are in hospital. 22 of them have developed a serious blood and kidney condition. Sarah Offin on the health violations and how parents are reacting.
What are they researching?
It's been a slow, difficult recovery for this Calgary boy, sick with a severe E. coli infection for the last week and a half.
He's really weak, and 4-year-olds, when they're sick, are cranky.
He went into the hospital Saturday, September 2nd. By 11 a.m. Sunday, doctors told them the first of many tests was positive for E. coli. The first communication from his daycare came Sunday night, with a warning from health officials about a gastrointestinal illness. But it wasn't until the Monday that health officials called it an E. coli outbreak.
You're not naming a specific bacteria that has specific implications.
Provincial health officials speaking publicly for the first time since the outbreak.
We didn't feel that there was urgency to do that up until this point.
Alberta Health Services releasing its latest health inspections report following the closure of the central kitchen believed to be the source. It lists 5 new violations, 3 of which are deemed critical, including ineffective sanitation equipment, cold foods being transported to other locations in excess of 90 minutes without temperature control, and significant evidence of pest infestation, including more than 20 dead or alive cockroaches around the dishwashing area. While almost a dozen food samples have been tested, the cause of the outbreak is still unknown. Sarah McDonald's boy and 21 others have been diagnosed with a serious blood and kidney condition. The family is still unclear if there will be long-term consequences for their son, as it calls for the central kitchen to face consequences of its own.
The inspections are first and foremost an educational opportunity.
An education the kitchen could have learned from after remediating previous violations, and a response that's not sitting well with parents, now part of a class action lawsuit.
Food safety should not be an educational experience for the people working there at the expense of my child. I'll be making my kids' food from now on.
Sarah Offin, Global News, Calgary.
Health Canada has approved an updated Moderna vaccine for COVID-19. It's authorized for use in people as young as 6 months. It's formulated to fight the Omicron subvariant that's circulating right now, but can be effective against other variants too. The vaccine is expected to roll out in October. Updated shots by Pfizer-BioNTech and Novavax are still under review. There has been an increase in COVID cases in Canada over the past few weeks. Montreal police have launched an investigation into so-called suicide kits an Ontario man is accused of selling. 57-year-old Kenneth Law was arrested in Ontario in May. Investigators believe he used a series of websites to sell sodium nitrite, a common preservative that can be deadly in high doses. Police in Montreal say they suspect Law sent sodium nitrite to addresses in Montreal.
It's not illegal to have this sodium nitrate. It's what we're investigating is actually the counseling or abetting or aiding a person to commit suicide. So the people have no worries in calling us and calling 911 if they believe they're in possession of one of these kits.
Law is already facing 14 charges of counseling and aiding suicide in Ontario. Police allege he operated several websites selling items that can be used for self-harm and shipped them to people in more than 40 countries. In the UK, investigators have identified 272 people who bought products from websites linked to Law. 88 of them died. The jury in the murder trial of an Ontario man has been shown surveillance video of the accused moments after 5 members of a Muslim family were run down by a pickup truck. 4 members of the Afzal family were killed. Nathaniel Veltman is seen dropping to his knees and putting his hands on his head as police race to the scene. He's accused of deliberately running down the family with his truck in June of 2021. Global's Sean O'Shea is covering this trial. Sean, tell us more about that video.
Donna, we saw what appears to be the first video of Nathaniel Veltman in his pickup truck just after that London attack 2 years ago. Between that video and a 911 call, Veltman is heard not only admitting what he did, but asking to be apprehended. 2 years after 4 family members were out for an evening walk in London, Ontario, the man accused of killing them was back in court Tuesday. 22-year-old Nathaniel Veltman arrived in a prisoner van, the subject of this high-profile terror trial. Prosecutors argue Veltman intentionally drove his truck into the family because he wanted to kill Muslims. On the first day of the trial, they alleged Veltman was a white nationalist who left a hate-filled manifesto in his apartment. They introduced this security video from a camera situated beside the Cherry Hill Mall in London. It shows a black Dodge Ram pickup truck driven by Veltman entering the parking lot, approaching a yellow London taxicab. In court, the driver testified that Veltman told him to call 911. He asked me, "Call the cops, call the police." The taxi driver said Veltman insisted. "Shut up, call 911, he ordered. Prosecutors played the 911 call.
Please, fire ambulance.
Veltman could be heard making this admission.
I did it on purpose.
Insisting police come immediately.
Get the over here, would you?
The driver says Veltman told him to record what was happening. He said, "Make a movie, make a movie." Soon after, several police cars showed up. Veltman dropped to his knees, his hands on his head. The taxi driver testified Veltman was wearing an Army-style helmet and a bulletproof vest. Moments later, Veltman is placed in handcuffs, taken into custody, and arrested. Defense lawyers have already conceded Veltman was behind the wheel. They haven't said what their defense will be.
A jury trial is like a play. Think of it as Shakespearean. There are going to be 3 acts here. There's the Crown. That's Act 1 is the Crown presents its case. Act 2 is the defense presents its case if it chooses to. And Act 3 is the charge to the jury and the verdict. So you just have to be patient.
And the federal prosecutors said they plan to introduce more admissions from Veltman, including that he had no regrets after the fact. Donna.
All right, Sean O'Shea in Windsor, Ontario tonight. Thanks. Conservative MP Michael Chong says closer cooperation with Canadian allies is needed to combat foreign interference by China.
My experience is but one case of Beijing's interference in Canada. Many, many other cases go unreported and unnoticed. We can do a lot together to counter this repression.
Chong was testifying in Washington at a bipartisan committee of congressional lawmakers. He's been at the center of foreign interference allegations in Canada since reports surfaced the Chinese government repeatedly targeted him and his family. Chong says Ottawa and Washington need to increase transparency to expose instances of intimidation by Beijing's agents and cooperate to better track the transnational movement of funds. Plunging popularity in the polls. Coming up, what's weighing on the minds of federal Liberals as they gather for a caucus retreat. The plane is fixed and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is on his way home from India. Trudeau and his son Xavier, along with the Canadian delegation, left Delhi this afternoon. They were stranded for 2 days after the G20 summit because of a technical problem with that government aircraft. The Prime Minister needed to get back in time for a gathering of Liberal MPs. They're holding a national caucus retreat this week, and at the same time are facing the worst polling numbers since first forming government in 2015. Mackenzie Gray is in London, Ontario. Mackenzie, this is a Prime Minister under pressure.
Yeah, he's under a lot of pressure right now, Donna, and he'll be hearing it from MPs when he meets with them tomorrow. You know, the Liberals are down 10-plus points, like you mentioned, in the polls right now, the worst situation the Prime Minister's been in for an extended period of time, and they really wanted to refocus back in on housing, the economy, affordability issues, and that's what he said he was going to do, shuffling his cabinet. He did that 7 weeks ago. We've seen no substantive new policies from the Liberals right now, but when we talked to some MPs today, they said maybe they just need to refine their communications on what their economic message is.
The government does have a plan, and it has perhaps not shown yet all the potential of its realization, but it's coming.
We are in solution mode. We will be coming up with key initiatives linked to housing, and Canadians can trust us.
One of the most interesting things we heard from was from Jenica Atwin. She's an MP from New Brunswick. She's saying at the doors, Donna, she's hearing that the Prime Minister is a part of a political liability for the Liberals.
I knock on doors, there's mixed messages about our leader. I think sometimes it's also for people thinking it's cool not to like our Prime Minister right now, which is a very weird phenomenon that's happening.
So, Mackenzie, on another topic, the federal and Ontario governments are giving $28 billion in subsidies to 2 electric vehicle battery plants in Ontario, promising that it's good investment in the economy. What did the Parliamentary Budget Officer have to say about that today?
Yeah, these deals, Donna, $28 billion for Stellantis and Volkswagen to build those battery plants close to where we are here in London, St. Thomas, Ontario, and Windsor. But the PBO said that the period of time that the government had originally estimated, in particular the Volkswagen deal, 5 years the government originally said, Mr. Yves Giroux says it's going to take 20 years for the government to break even on that. But despite that, the minister who signed those deals, Francois-Philippe Champagne, says he'd do it over again.
Those are good deals for Canadians because we're going to get our money within a number of years, and then we're going to rip dividends for, 100 years?
And it's no surprise to see the Liberals supporting these deals, Donna. They're really popular in this part of the country, and if the Liberals are going to have a political comeback, they know they need votes in southwestern Ontario.
Okay, Mackenzie Gray in London, Ontario tonight. Thanks. Big tech on trial ahead, how Google is accused of rigging the search engine market. North Korea's leader got a red carpet welcome in Russia today. Kim Jong-un rolled in on his private armored train and was greeted by a Russian military honor guard. He's expected to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin tomorrow. The Kremlin says the two will discuss bilateral relations, the situation in the region, and in the global arena. The biggest antitrust trial in decades began today, pitting the U.S. government against Google. Prosecutors claim Google illegally abused its power, rigging the internet search market in its favor, paying billions of dollars annually to companies such as Apple and Samsung to be their default search engine, and strangling competition. Google denies that. It says its dominance is a result of providing a better product than its competitors. The results of the case could reshape how the public accesses and interacts with the internet. It's being seen as a test case for how much power U.S. regulators have over tech giants. A ruling is expected early next year. Aerosmith fans don't want to miss a thing, but they will have to, at least for a little while. The band is postponing half a dozen dates on its farewell tour, including tonight's scheduled concert in Toronto. Frontman Steven Tyler injured his vocal cords during a performance in the U.S. over the weekend. Tyler says the damage led to bleeding, and doctors say he can't sing for the next 30 days. 6 shows are now postponed to early next year. Tonight's Toronto show has been pushed ahead to February 21st, 2024. Freedom of the press next. A big legal victory for Nobel Prize-winning journalist Maria Ressa. Nobel Prize-winning journalist Maria Ressa has been acquitted in the last of 5 tax evasion cases filed against her in the Philippines, and it's being viewed as a win for press freedom.
Facts win, truth wins, justice wins. But I think more important, you have to really look at the impact on business, because the tax evasion charges threatened the way of doing business in the Philippines. The acquittal now strengthens our resolve to continue with the justice system, to submit ourselves to the court despite the political harassment, despite the attacks on press freedom.
Ressa and her news site Rappler faced a barrage of civil and criminal cases when former President Rodrigo Duterte was in power. She believes they were politically motivated, an attempt to muzzle reporting of the thousands of deaths under Duterte's anti-drug campaign. They're now being investigated by the International Criminal Court as crimes against humanity. Ressa won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2021 for her fearless reporting in the face of growing authoritarianism in the Philippines, an honor she shared with Russian journalist Dmitry Muratov. And that is Global National for this Tuesday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is Western Canada's first steam engine, built almost 100 years ago in the Winnipeg suburb of Transcona. We'd love to see your Canada. Please email it to viewers@globalnational.com. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.